that if they are unable to buy the homegrown product at a price which will keep the homegrown, the home farmers alive and kicking, so to speak, if it was applied in that way, as to some extent it was in Britain, before we were sucked in to the common market, that would keep your home industries going.
Well, time is moving on, and I think there's one question here that perhaps we might finish with. And would you agree that economic and financial reform of any kind depends upon some correction of our political institutions and the system of representative government?
I'm not sure which comes first, the chicken or the egg. Anything to be effective in control of governments has to build up from the bottom. We haven't had time to go on to Douglas's political proposals.
I think the question here is aimed at bringing those out.
He moved on when he, having discovered that the reason why his technical proposals to correct the defective monetary system were not only not applied, but were opposed tooth and nail by the powers that be, he realized that the problem was political. And he went on to make a whole series of experiments in which we took part, starting with a national campaign and then going down to local objectives, in which in Britain before the war were enormously successful. Then the war smashed all that. Then he went on to the Constitution. One light he threw on democracy is that if you're dealing with numbers, democracy is essentially negative. If you can get people who are objecting to something that's imposed upon them to agree, they'll be united. And however much they're brainwashed by the media and the enormous powers that are brought, especially worse now today, with television as well, on top of radio and press, schools, everything, you still can't usually brainwash a people who are united in objecting to something. So to that extent, he gave an insight into the control of governments, and insofar as we've applied it on a local scale, it has succeeded. Not always. Depends on the objective chosen. Now here you've got a different situation, which it would be rather foolish, I think, to the ghastly way we were sucked into the common market, first of all by a corrupt parliament, because we were sucked in by 8 votes in the second reading of the parliamentary bill. Far more than that number had undertaken to oppose it. They just went back in the word. And then we were told a referendum was impossible, out of the question, unconstitutional. And then when we were given the referendum, after we'd been dragged in, it was an example of inertia selling. we were so flooded with propaganda saying, now we're in, we've got to stay in, we can't possibly come out, we've promised to go in. And, officially and unofficially, enormous money is spent and so on, after we'd been dragged in. Now, it's rather encouraging when we come here and find that you have the referendum built into your constitution against constitutional changes, and that whenever something that people didn't really want, they have turned it down. So to that extent, and if you can enlarge that base, I hope you can. That base of, I've told Eric before that just an expression of my opinion that once it comes round to something positive, the public is more liable to be brainwashed. All the media will represent something which perhaps when you look into it, people who really understand it find it's just the opposite of what they want, but it will all be represented as the most wonderful thing in the world. And the television in particular is the most appalling power of brainwashing people. So I wouldn't trust the positive, but I would trust the Australian people and the British people, for that matter. If they're given a chance to turn down something, they will do so.